It's like water bending or mirror bending as such. So attractive, aren't they? Now look at that. That is perfect. Right, we are back with another Resin Art video. So we're going to be trying something today. Well, I've tried this once. I tried it yesterday. I've just finished it today. I'll show you that one at the end. Lots of people have done this. Some people are gatekeeping it on different platforms. We don't like gatekeeping. Sharing is caring, isn't it? So I know a few people have done this. I want to say Shalina over at TNR has done this, but I'm not 100% certain. But it keeps popping up. I keep seeing this being done on mirrors, and I think it's a sign that I need to show how I'm doing mine. So all I've got here is an acrylic mirror, 10 centimeters, 4 inches, and my mold. So all we're going to do is keep it simple with this one. I'll show you the one that I finished just about half an hour ago. I'll show you that at the end. So you can kind of tweak this into different ways. So all I'm going to do now is just mix up some epoxy. And I'm just using the collab resin for this. So the key to creating the ripples, the water ripples in your epoxy is doing it at the right time. So this is going to depend on your epoxy resin. This is going to depend on your room temperature. Lots of different things are going to come into play, but it's getting to it at the right time because epoxy wants to self-level. If you get to this at the wrong time, you're going to do your effect and it's just going to flatten down again. So I'll talk you through how I did mine. Let's get mixing. So I've just poured equal parts of part A and part B, and I'm just going to stir this until there's no more streaks. Okay, you're going to see there's a lot of bubbles in there because I rushed my mixing. I could run it through my vacuum chamber, but I don't really need to. Because I'm gonna wait for my resin to thicken up for the next stage. It's just gonna speed the whole process up because we all know epoxy cures through exothermic reaction. So the deeper the amount of resin, the quicker it's going to cure. So if I was to pour this in there straight away, it's more shallow. So it's going to take longer to get to the stage where we need to do the effects. So I'm going to speed it up by just keeping an eye on this and just checking it every now and again. So yeah, it's just going to begin to warm and thicken in my mixing cup before we proceed. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee, you're a super thanks, and to all my subscribers, and to everyone who's wished Mrs. Cooper get well soon wishes. She's broken her ankle, so the puppy's okay now, but Mrs. Cooper still has a space boot on her foot. So yeah. Okay, so my resin is now a bit thicker and a bit warmer. Just going to quickly use some bits of fluff on my mirror. So like I said, you could do this in lots of different ways. You could do this on an actual mirror. It makes good wall art, I suppose. But yeah, I'll explain at the end why I'm not so keen on it on a wall. So what I'm going to do is pour some of my mask's riding up my face again. Pour some of my epoxy underneath the mirror and then push that down and then put a thin layer on top. Like so. I'm hoping I've got enough. Really am hoping I've got enough. Just going to give that a really good push down till the resin comes out the sides. I want the mirror practically touching the mold, because when it comes to doing the ripples, I don't want it to cause any issues with the mirror bowing inside the epoxy. Now I can just pour the rest on top and we'll get a time check. So you'll see there's only a couple of millimeters on top of the mirror. That's all we need. We don't need anything more than that. And I'm just going to pop these bubbles. I'm just going to give it a little bit of time for those bubbles to rise up and pop those with some heat. And the mixing cup that I've just poured my epoxy out, I saw another artist. Whilst I was waiting for the epoxy to warm up, I come across another artist. I can't remember her name. I'll have to look it up again. But she used I'll show you the resin that cures to the inside of the pot. as like a splash effect. You'll see it. I don't know whether we'll be able to do it with this one. If not, I'll do it with some UV resin afterwards, but we'll give it a try and see what happens. Okay, time check. It is, say, 2 in the afternoon. So yeah, we'll come back when it's ready to do the effects. Cosmo Claus was the artist, so massive shout out to Cosmo Claus. You'll see there's a couple of, I thought there were bubbles, but what's happened is when I've pushed down the acrylic mirror, it's kind of shattered in tiny little areas, but I'm not overly worried. Okay, so it's been about an hour and 20 minutes. So if I now poke this, you'll see that it's very thick, but what you'll see as well is that it returns back, so it self-levels again, so it's not quite ready. So we need to give that a little bit more time. So it has been, say, 3.5 hours. Now this is the consistency you want. See how thick that resin is. Really, really thick and stringy. So now we do the water ripple effect. And I'm going to stick one of these on for protection, better protection, as these gloves are slightly textured. There you go. So attractive, aren't they? These are called many things. And this is key. We also want to stick our finger in some Vaseline. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the resin is just going to stick, and it's going to create such a terrible mess. We need this, and you're going to have to dip it. You're going to have to dip it a few times as you go along. So what we're going to do is take our lubed up finger, find the middle, and just begin to massage in a circular motion, like so. I'm hoping that's the center. I'm kind of looking at an angle on my phone as I'm recording, and you'll see that it's beginning to create that ripple. And don't worry about the smear marks from the Vaseline. And you can just see that beginning to take form. Then we just work our way out, just drawing in lines or circular lines. And just try and space it correctly with, sorry, the heating's coming on, so that annoying clicking's happening from my kitchen. So I'm just gonna keep going around this row. And if you're using a Vaseline that you use, say, on your lips or something like that, don't go sticking your finger back in that pot. Take some out and pop it in a separate cup and use that. Don't put it back inside your pot, because you don't want to be putting that on your skin. I was quite off center. I took my head above my phone. I was quite off center. So you can manipulate it and push it more. If you do go off center, start to push the resin towards the middle, and then kind of push this side back, so you can move it. So don't panic too much. So I've got my middle so far. I've got the second ring here, and then I've got the third ring here. So you can see this is like water bending or mirror bending as such. Actually looks like we're bending the mirror. It's really, really cool. So I think I can go with another one just on the outside here and just go over it and just keep smoothing it out, making sure that the rings are uniformed and they've got nice shape, natural water ripple formation and shape. Again, keep dipping and keep going. So I couldn't get another one on the outside, so I'm just pushing this out a little bit further, just so it's taking up more of the space. And then I can take this one out a little bit further, like so. So just spacing them out a little bit better. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it from that angle. So now what I can do is just begin to go over the top of the raised areas and just smooth them out a little bit so they're not so prominent. So I think that will do. Just smoothing out. What can happen from the one that I did yesterday is that if you've got a lump of Vaseline sitting on the surface, it can leave that kind of that mark on the resin. So just try and smooth it out as best as you can, and then we just wait for the next part when that's cured. But don't panic. If your resin begins to self-level and go flat again, just leave it for maybe another half an hour and just come back. Because once it begins to get to that stage where it will hold its form, you'll be fine. One more thing. Don't go sticking this on a heat mat, because the heat will lower the viscosity of the resin for a short period of time and it will just flatten. So don't go doing that. You could potentially speed up the 3.5 hour part by using a heat mat, but the issue with that is that heat mats sometimes they distribute the heat unevenly over the surface. So what can happen is that it will get to a certain curing stage, say up here, and then a different curing stage down here. You'll go and do your design, and one part of it will self-level and the other part may keep its form. So I wouldn't even bother with the heat mat at all. Okay, we are all cured. How cool does that look? It has settled down a little bit, but not too much. Just remember as well to clean your molds, because there's probably going to be some Vaseline around the edges. So now we just need to get off that excess Vaseline. Just clean all of that off, otherwise the next part is going to go wrong and the resin is not going to bond. So you can see what I mean here about the kind of marks left behind from the Vaseline, from the rubbing. You can give that a very light sanding and just glaze coat it with a UV resin, just quick and easy. But you'll also possibly have a lip just around the edge. You can trim that down and just take off that excess with a cuticle tool, deburring tool, or just some scissors. Now just give that a quick wipe over with some alcohol. Now we're just going to put that to one side and work on the splash effect. I don't think this is going to have given me the splash effect that I want, and I also think that the resin is still quite soft inside, so it's not as crispy. It's not going to come out how I want it, so I'm going to do it a different way. Still using this, but we're gonna cheat and use some UV resin. So all I'm going to do is just pour a small amount around the bottom of this cup, but I'm ensuring that it's kind of all around the sides, not so much in the middle. Now I'm just going to take cocktail stick, toothpick, whatever, and I'm just going to drag this up the sides like so. Sorry, my focus is going. I should know about now. How many years have I been doing this? Yeah, so I'm just bringing that up the sides, which is going to create a splash effect all the way around. You might have to keep going around a few times, but you can see what's happening. Can you see what's happening? You get the idea, don't you guys? Just keep going around until that's all covered. Not all covered, but enough splashing. I'm talking too much. Tell me to shut up. And then I'm going to whack that under my lamp for a minute just to cure. Now I also want a droplet of water coming out of the center in the middle of the splash And to achieve this, I'm going to use my shampoo, UV resin in shampoo, bath, shower gel, as long as it's thick stuff. You've seen me make pearls with this, you've seen me make 3D ornaments, you've seen this quite a bit on the channel. So I'm going to just pour some of my stuff, shampoo-y stuff, in this cup here, and we are going to form a droplet of water. So to do this, let me take you down. We are just going to take our UV resin, do a drop, and then bring a tail out. What you can do as well, if your tail is not pointy enough, just use a stick and just drag that down. You might have to do this a couple of times to get the right kind of droplet form that you want, and then just cure that in the shampoo under your UV light. Let's see what this one's come out like. I think the tail's a little bit too thick for what I want. I'm just going to take that out, clean it up. Yeah, I think that could work. By the time we've got the splash around it as well, and I'm also going to add another droplet above it, just slightly bigger than the one that's there. So same thing again, but this time I don't want a tail. I just want a drop. And with the drop, it's important to let the drop kind of work its way down into the shampoo a bit, so you've got a perfectly round drop of water. If you do it when you just pour it onto the surface, it's going to have a flat side at the top. Okay, let's check our splash effect. Crispy is what we want. Just push around the sides of the cup and then the bottom. I don't want to snap it. It is thin. Now, I think I'm going to try dipping mine just to give, because if you see, it's very flat. It really does look like a splash though, that's incredible. But it's very flat. So I'm wondering if I do my dipping on this, it may help. So I'm going to bond with a tiny bit of UV resin on here and then dip it into my UV resin pot. Hopefully this will work. So inside this pot is just, most of you know, the Let's Resin UV resin. Same resin I've used on most of my videos. It's in a black pot so it doesn't cure. The UV resin is not black. Lots of people say, what's that black resin you're dipping in? It's not, it's clear. So I'm just going to take this and dip it. I don't need to go as far as the whole piece, but just the sides. And I'm hoping that will create a really nice, more rounded drop effect. And then I can just let most of the excess drip off and then cure that under my lamp for a minute. Now look at that. That is perfect. And that has also hidden any of the little marks that are around this measuring cup, like numbers that could be slightly visible through the sides, but that is perfect. So just twist off that stick. Might have to take a little bit that, file that off. So that will sit in the center, and we're going to hide all that so it's going to be uniformed with that final coat of UV resin. So it is now just a kind of assembly process of putting everything together and making sure it looks good. So you could do this stage with epoxy, but don't flood coat it because that is going to infill all of these rings. So you only need a small amount, but I'd suggest if you're attaching this part, definitely do it with UV resin because we do have quite a prominent ring that we kind of need to hide in there. We don't really want that visible. So I'm just going to put a thin amount of UV resin all over mine, just so it's quick and easy. Then I think I'm going to run just a slight ring of UV resin around the bottom of this and place that where I want it in the center. So how cool is that looking? That splash effect is really, really good. So I cured that quickly. Because we can do this final stage now, it doesn't really matter. We just apply a fresh drop of UV resin in the middle. I could have done this bit first. It might have been easier so that this isn't in the way. It's just the way that I've done it. So you can do it any way you want. So I'm just going to bond that into the center. Sorry for the wobble. With a small amount of UV resin. And again, just going to use my flashlight for this. Going to move that around a bit so it's not so lumpy and bumpy, if that makes sense. No, it fell over. I think my batteries are running out in my torch. Let's try that again. A bit more patient with it this time. And just make sure it's straight. Now, I'm not sure if I need the bigger droplet. What I was going to do is just bond that slightly above, kind of pull it away slightly. So I think I will. I mean, you can see it before and you'll see it afterwards. So again, just a tiny amount on the top of this one. And then rest this on top and slightly pull it away. Slightly lift it up so that there's like a really slightly stringy bit of resin in between the two bits. I'm hoping. I can't really see because the phone's in the way. And again, just make sure that's centered before it fully cures. We got it. And then just to make sure, I'm going to give that another minute under the beast. Okay, we are all done. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment if you haven't subbed. Hit that sub button, it is absolutely free, help the channel grow. Okay, so this is the first one that I made. You may have seen this on a different platform. I filmed it. It's just a really quick experiment video just to see if I could get the timings right. Now, the ripples on this one are better. The ripples on the one that we've just done, they kind of flattened down a little bit too much. But all I did differently with this one is used some stickers. These are fishy stickers. I can't even remember where I got these from. So I just applied these first to this coaster was from my previous video, the one with the PVA writing messages in the mirror. I just repurposed it just as an experiment because the mirror was already in the resin, so it's slightly thicker. So I didn't add a splash effect on this one. The ripples are better, but I'm not overly happy with it, if I'm brutally honest. But the droplet looks really, really good. So this is the one that we've just made. So as you can see, it's not the ripple effect isn't as prominent as it is in that first one, but the splash effect is absolutely incredible. I'm loving this. So you can just use this for trinkets. Now, why don't I like this as wall art? Because the orientation, water doesn't come out like that. I don't know, it's just my brain. I don't like the idea of having this on a wall. You might do, I don't know. I think without the splash effect and without the droplet in the middle, it would look pretty cool. A bit like the Matrix, you know, where he puts his finger on the mirror and it ripples. I think that's the right film, isn't it? Was it in the Matrix? I can't remember. Yeah, that would be pretty cool if you was to do it on a bigger scale. I've seen others do it, but without the splash effect and the drop. But I think that dip in that has really finished that off. Look at the way that's coming out at a direction there. But yeah, you could just use that for trinkets, for rings, jewelry, just as like a little tray. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed playing around with this, so I hope you will too. Right, I will see you for the next one. Bye for now. Just quickly, if you wanted to go with the sticker option, you could add these afterwards just to finish it off. It's entirely up to you. So you could add like petals on the water, kind of jazz it up a little bit. Again, that's just entirely up to you. But The thing is with these is you can see, I suppose you could cut them back a little bit if you wanted to, but you can see that kind of stickery bit. So I'm going to cut mine back. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Jazz it up however you like. Stickers or not, which do you prefer? I like it without.